On June 2, 2026, the second largest city in the United States chooses a mayor. 14 names are on the ballot. But if we measure the race strictly by available public data, only 5 names actually register on the board. The mathematical rule governing this election is absolute. If any candidate receives more than 50% of the vote in the primary, the race ends that night. If no one clears that line, the top 2 finishers advance to a runoff in November. Right now, we have 5 Tier 1 contenders: Karen Bass, Spencer Pratt, Nithya Raman, Adam Miller, and Ray Chen Huang. We are going to look at them using only hard empirical metrics. Before we even consider political ideology, an election is defined by the rigid structural constraints of the system. It comes down to polls, available capital, and time. 3 independent polls measured this race in March. All 3 show the incumbent, Karen Bass, holding a clear lead over the rest of the field. However, those same polls reveal a glaring vulnerability. More than half of voters view her unfavorably. She holds a polling lead and a massive liability at the exact same time. This chart shows the total dollars raised by each campaign over the 2026 cycle. Right now, Spencer Pratt and Karen Bass are running the largest financial engines in the race, with Pratt holding a slight overall lead. But if we look at the timeline of those donations, we see an extreme anomaly. Between mid-April and mid-May, Pratt raised $2.7 million in 27 days. He outpaced the incumbent 10-1 in the closing month. In the previous cycle, Rick Caruso spent over $100 million of his personal wealth running against Karen Bass. She defeated him by 10 points. Capital buys reach, but it does not guarantee an outcome. The final empirical metric is political experience. Bass has spent 22 continuous years in elected office. Spencer Pratt, Adam Miller, and Ray Chen Huang sit at absolute 0. They have never held an elected position. These raw numbers precisely map the resources and history of a given campaign, but they cannot measure human intent. To figure out what these candidates actually want to do, we have to look past the hard data and estimate their ideology. Data tells us what they have. Models tell us where they stand. Transitioning to inferred mapping changes the rules of how we view them. This model plots 3 policy axes. First, homelessness. Huang pushes universal housing left, Bass anchors center left. Pratt frames it as enforcement failure right. Adding housing and policing forces a 3D scatterplot. Huang and Raman favor tenant protections and reallocating police funds, while Pratt and Miller align with accelerated development and a hiring forward LAPD posture. When viewed all at once, distinct strategic clusters emerge. We have a progressive corner with Huang and Raman, a center incumbent position held by Bass, and an outsider managerial corner shared by Miller and Pratt. If Bass does not win outright on election night, the runoff math depends entirely on which of these inferred ideological corners consolidates the fastest. Policy positions naturally attract specific support networks. Bass holds a massive institutional coalition, anchored by legacy Democratic endorsements, the governor, and heavy labor union support. Pratt's orbit looks vastly different. His network is heavily media-driven, pulling from conservative podcast hosts, MAGA figures, and reality television personalities. Meanwhile, a critical fracture divides the progressive wing of the race. Institutional left support and entertainment donors gravitate toward Raman, while grassroots organizations and tenant movements lean toward Huang. A modeled coalition reveals exactly who funds a candidate and who knocks on doors for them. But all of these models rely on a single, massive assumption: that voters will behave predictably. There is one final variable in the selection. It refuses to be captured by empirical data, and it ignores ideological modeling. This visualization shows the sheer scale of the undecided voter bloc. Current polling indicates that up to half of all likely voters have not yet chosen a side. This bloc is physically larger than any single candidate's organized support. As all these forces converge on the June 2nd primary, the entire system is forced through a strict bottleneck. The top 2 finishers advance, unless someone crosses that 50% threshold. Right now, that massive gray cloud sits squarely in the middle of the funnel. 14 names on the ballot, 5 candidates with public data, 3 distinct policy models, and 1 massive void. A modern election can be meticulously mapped, aggressively funded, and perfectly modeled. But the ultimate arbiter of power in Los Angeles is still the unpredictable mass of citizens who have yet to make up their minds.